Welcome back, viewers at home. You're still tuned in right here on Prime Live, and we're having all things, wellness and health. And tonight, I am joined by Razana Allie, who is a diabetes specialist nurse. She is here to discuss the complex condition of diabetes and the associated stigmas that far too often accompany it. Now, Razana's wealth of, knowledge and compassion make her an invaluable resource in our exploration of diabetes, its challenges, and the ways we can break down the misconceptions that surround diabetes. Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us tonight.
Walaikum salam. How are you?
Alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah for having me on.
Always a pleasure. Now, Razana, can we start by asking you to explain to us what exactly diabetes is and what are some common stigmas and misconceptions surrounding diabetes?
Diabetes is a chronic condition that is related to blood glucose levels or sugar, as such, as everybody knows. But it's because your body can't get rid of the sugar that you are making from the food or from your liver at all. So there's always blood sugars or extra sugar in the bloodstream mouth that is causing chronic complications over a period of time. There are different types of diabetes. There's type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, as well as gestational diabetes. And each one has its own sort of road that you take. When it comes to type 1 diabetes, it usually occurs in children. And we're seeing a lot of that in younger adults as well these days, where you have type 1 diabetes, where your pancreas just stops working. And it's an actual fact, it's an autoimmune condition, unfortunately. So we don't know who's going to get it, who's not going to get it. It is not related to what you eat, what you didn't eat. So yeah, they need to be on insulin from day one, and that is for the rest of their life. There's no cure for that. Then you also have type 2 diabetes, which is what most people have. It's related to family history. A lot of it is lifestyle related, but I must tell you that when you talk about lifestyle, you've got to look at a much bigger picture. We're seeing a lot of people with type 2 diabetes now that develop diabetes because of poverty. It can happen. It can also happen because of medication, and it initially starts with high blood glucose, and you start them on tablets, and eventually people have to go onto insulin going forward. There's also no cure for that. There's also gestational diabetes. It occurs during pregnancy. So later in the pregnancy, you develop diabetes, and most times, as soon as the baby is born, the diabetes disappears. But there's always going to be a memory in your body. So later on in life, you can develop type 2 diabetes.
And what would you say are some of the misconceptions surrounding or stigmas surrounding diabetes? And most importantly, how can we now gear up to challenge these beliefs and promote understanding, society?
Well, whenever you hear somebody that says they have diabetes, everybody just says it's related to food, it's related to your weight, it's related to what you've eaten most of the time and what you've not been doing. So that is the biggest stigma, unfortunately, because lifestyle, like I said to you earlier on, lifestyle is not only what you eat, what you didn't eat, and unfortunately, we are having a lot of people that have type 2 diabetes that is related to poverty. So you can't say it is a lifestyle condition. Sometimes it is related to something like asthma, and they're getting treatment for it. We're seeing a lot of post-COVID. We're seeing a lot of type 2 diabetes as well. And so, yeah, that is already a stigma on its own. When you're looking at children and they have to inject insulin from day one, it could be a baby of 2 months old for all you know. Everybody believes that it's related to lifestyle. So automatically, what did you do? What have you done? Why didn't you live the correct life? So people don't want to talk about the diabetes then. So no one wants to be told that they have it. And number two, nobody wants to tell anybody. So the reveal is very, very, very difficult these days because of the stigma. And sometimes it starts with healthcare professionals, to be honest. We have to look at ourselves. We have to look at how we present the diagnosis and also how we present the management, because you can manage diabetes, it can be controlled. But if you are being scolded at all the time, you're not going to want to go to the clinic. And this is what's been happening. So people don't want to go to a clinic, don't want to go to the doctors, because the healthcare professional themselves are negative towards the management of diabetes. Also, if you look at in schools, teachers don't want to assist the children with diabetes. They don't want to help them to test their blood glucose levels, to inject their insulin. So it becomes difficult for a child to manage their diabetes because they don't want to be seen as being different. Okay, because when you have diabetes at this stage, you are different, which is wrong. Okay, diabetes is who you are, right? It doesn't make you, it doesn't define who you are.
Hmm. And with that being said, Razana, what are some of the actual steps that we need to consider? Be you, a regular individual or professional health worker or a teacher at that, in terms of creating a more supportive and understanding environment for the individuals.
I think most importantly is step outside the judgment. Do not judge anybody else, because it can happen to anyone. It can happen to you, it can happen to a family member. So do not judge that person. Be there to understand and empathize with what they have and ask for assistance, how you can help, how you can be available to them to make it easier so that they can then manage their diabetes more effectively. So one of the problems is that people with diabetes, because they're not managing their diabetes properly, they develop um, lots of comorbidities and complications. So we want to prevent the complications, and one way of doing that is by allowing them to be who they are, by allowing them to give the opportunity to test their blood sugars, to actually take the medication that they should, and also to inject as necessary, when necessary. And so it's very important for the person with diabetes then to approach the healthcare professional so that they can actually look at how they are managing their diabetes and talk about what the problems are. You know, there's a big component these days is mental health, and we sometimes forget that mental health is an issue with diabetes. Why? Because, when you get told you have diabetes, immediately you start thinking that it's the end of life. But that's not the way it is. So we actually have to take them through a whole process of how they have to get to a place where they actually manage and accept that they have the diabetes and how to best manage them. So that's the healthcare professional. Family members, we have a problem with that, because as family members, we don't want to invite the person with diabetes, because now we can't cook the kind of foods that we want to. We don't, we can't eat, we can't drink, you can't do what you normally do as a family, which is wrong. Because you cook one pot of food instead of having to cook 5 pots of food. There's different ways in making this work. There is no diabetes diet anymore. We used to have it many years ago, but that's not how it is. It's getting to understand how to best manage the foods and the types of drinks that you are taking in to best manage your diabetes. And of course, the exercise or the activity is also very important. So it would be nice if people that are very active take the person with diabetes along and understand when they're going to have a low blood sugar, when they're going to have a high blood sugar, when they have to inject the insulin, and when they have to take something to actually boost their blood glucose levels. So that's also very, very important, is understanding. So education is key.
Now, Razana, with that being said, I mean, just highlighting the fact that you said, diabetes is something that really needs to be managed. Can you share with us if there are any advancement in terms of, technological, devices or treatments that people should consider in having in their daily lives?
So when you're talking about treatment, we're still stuck on insulin right now, and that's the best treatment for all types of diabetes, because once you've injected the insulin, your blood glucose levels become a lot more stable. And obviously, with the education, it's going to be a better option. We do have long acting insulins. We have very rapid or very fast acting, short acting insulins. So whether you have type 1, type 2, or gestational diabetes, if you want insulin, there are newer insulins available. It is quite expensive. So if you are on a medical aid, there's a lot of motivation that needs to take place for the newer types of insulin, which is going to make your life a lot more easier, prevent you from getting low blood sugars. And then there's also something new that I'm sure you've heard about, the GLP-1, Wegovy, Ozempic, you've heard that. It's also a new type of a treatment that does help with type 2 diabetes. And yeah, it is available, it is on the market, it is very expensive, and most medical aids don't pay for it right now. So if you're going to pay for it, it's got to be a sort of out of your pocket. And it is related, and it is for type 2 diabetes. Okay. Then there's also devices that are available. So everybody pricks their fingers in order to test their blood sugar levels, but we have something called a continuous glucose monitoring device. And it's a device that goes onto your body, okay, and gives you the opportunity to monitor your blood sugar over a period of 24 hours. For some, you'll get it for about 10 days, and other for 14 days. So it stays on for that period of time. And you can monitor your blood sugar over 24 hours. It works very, very well during Ramadan, I must tell you, because a lot of people still want to fast and have problems fasting because of the low blood sugar levels. So this is great because you're not pricking a finger. You're going to be it's a live opportunity to see what your blood sugar is throughout the day, all day. So you can adjust your dosages and your treatment, especially during Ramadan, very, very, very nicely. There is also something called a pump, so that is a closed loop system where there's insulin as well as testing blood glucose at the same time. It's very, very expensive, mostly indicated for people with type 1 diabetes. A lot of the children would help with that. It does make a very, very big difference. And it helps to have family members monitor and check when there's a low blood glucose or when there is a high blood glucose, just to help you to get along. Because sometimes people with that are on insulin treatment tend to get a low blood glucose, and as time goes, they become unaware of their low blood glucose, and then it's too late. So it's always good to have family members to be connected to the continuous glucose monitoring device, because that helps.
Now, Razana, also something that you mentioned earlier on is around, mental health implications for individuals who are, living with diabetes. Can you share with us in terms of what are some of the mental health, implications of living with diabetes, and most importantly, how can people manage the emotional aspect of, diabetes?
So the biggest problem is depression. Because as mentioned, that once you are diagnosed, immediately you think that is the end of life. But unfortunately, you've got it wrong because you can live with diabetes and it can be managed. So that depression comes from the fact that people do not want to listen to what you have to say. People ignore your blood glucose levels, ignore your treatment. The children especially can be very, very harsh, hey? Because at schools, there's a lot of bullying that happens. At Even with teachers, for that matter, the teachers bully the children because they don't want to help during the classes. A lot of the children complain about teachers that say they are disruptive in the class. So they want to stay at home a lot of the time. And that is a very, very big problem. And then also family members, like I said, that are being nasty, that are bullying each other, husbands, wives, that don't want to support them, their family members and their spouses. It's very important for the support and family members to support each other, healthcare professionals to support people with diabetes. And we're also starting to see a lot of people with diabetes speaking out and talking about it. There's a lot on social media right now, and also because the lived experience is very, very important. Okay, so, and there's also support groups. There are different support groups in different provinces, different areas. There's a lot, but you have to look for them.
You know, Razana, there's something that really shocked me when I listened to in terms of a sandwich. Something as simple as a sandwich can be something that can elevate one's glucose because of, the tomato sauce and the many processed items that we tend to put in our sandwiches that can really impact our health negatively. And I think this brings me to my last question tonight in terms of how important is nutrition in managing diabetes? And also, can you share some practical dietary tips for people with diabetes, or more at that, individuals who are living with someone who has diabetes, and what kind of, meal plans and dietary plans they need to consider when preparing a meal for the home?
So I'm not a dietitian, so I can't talk too much about it. But I do. I mean, we do talk about the types of food that is out there. Unfortunately, is not always the very good food to manage blood glucose levels, but there is ways of actually doing it. So I always talk on the level of the person that I'm talking to, because you can't tell somebody to buy sourdough bread when they can hardly afford normal shop bread. So first of all, you've got to be on the level of the person that you are talking to, and simple things like peanut butter, things like now, don't put butter on your bread. Just have your peanut butter instead of your butter and your bread. Things like uh, yogurt. So our whole idea is to go from only carbohydrates, but to have a mixed plate of food. So carbohydrates, which is your starches, make sugar. So you want to have as little of that as possible. And then protein doesn't make sugar. Protein acts like a vehicle. It's like a taxi, right? It takes all the sugar and it drops it off in different places as it goes along. So it doesn't make any sugar. And fat, there are healthy fats, there are good fats, and there are bad fats.
Yeah.
Okay, some of the good fats is something like avocado, olives. You can, eat olives or use olive oil for that matter over something cold instead of something hot. Again, it depends on what you can afford. I really quite enjoy your lentils, okay, because lentils also is a protein. So we know we like doing lentils. We're always having dal and rice. We're always having dal in our biryanis and our foods. So that also really does make a difference to your blood glucose. When you're talking about rice being a carbohydrate, basmati rice works very, very well to keep blood sugar levels controlled. So all basmati rice is good, but you always get good and you get better than good, right? So there are some of the basmati rices that you might have seen that says that it is diabetic friendly. So those are the ones that is more suitable for people with diabetes. Yeah, and then stay away from sugary foods. We all like to have nice cooked sisters and all our sweet meats. So that is something to consider, having less of that instead of more. Everything in moderation works. And if you know that you are using too much sugar, then rather go and exercise, because exercise or activity also helps to move your blood sugars, move your blood so that the sugar can go to places where you need the energy.
Razana,
That
just
is just the way, like I said, I'm not a dietitian. I can't say it too much.
Jazakallah so much, for sharing, the much that you know, because I think after all, most conversation when we look at, the health conversation, it's always something that when other people can connect with, while the other are just feeling like, okay, well, it's not speaking to me because my budget cannot afford the sourdough bread, as you mentioned, or my budget cannot afford, your rice cakes and things of that kind. But Jazakallah so much, for sharing in with us in terms of how we can be proactive in terms of, accommodating our loved ones who are living with diabetes, and how we can rid of some of the misconceptions and stigmas that exist in our societies.
Afwan, Jazakallah for having me here with you.
I mean, viewers at home, that was my guest, Razana Ali, who is a diabetes specialist nurse who was here to just to discuss with us the complex condition of diabetes and most importantly, some of the stigmas and misconceptions that surround diabetes. Hope that conversation was helpful and quite insightful for you. But for now, we're going to head over to a net break. We'll see you just after this.